Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming to Rover Ready Preparedness. I'm Taylor Smith. I am the disaster recovery specialist for the town of Superior, and I'm so happy to have all these different partners here that are a big part of animal preparedness in different capacities. We've got FEMA partners here with Blue. We've got Red Cross with their dogs. We've got Hope with their dogs. We got Casera Care for the Healer and Rocky Mountain Veterinary Medical Reserve.
All the acronyms. All the acronyms.
We have David Crawford, who's a Superior resident who invented the app Pet Help and Rescue to really help our community. So I'd like to start off with my own presentation. Really quick, it's about dog training behaviors that could be useful to teach your dog in case of emergencies and disasters during evacuation. So these two are my dogs, and I like to show my little preparedness doll box that I prepared at home. And we can go to the next slide. Sorry, technical difficulty. There we go. Okay, so I'm just gonna run through like the three top things that just for general preparedness, staying informed is really key. So make sure, especially if you live in Boulder County, make sure you sign up for BOCO Alert. I have the QR code to the website. You can just scan that on your phone and sign up if you haven't. Reach Well, after you've signed up for BOCO Alert, Reach Well is really nice to download and translate over 100 languages and also provide American Sign Language interpretation if needed. And then we've got the Pet Help and Rescue app that I just put up there, which David will talk more about in depth. So I'm not going to go too much in detail in that. There we go. Okay, next up, make a plan. Try to be proactive when it comes to your pets. Just because our dogs are creatures of habit and routine, so anything that's changed, they lose it. So we really want to be proactive around that. It's really key to know your pet's triggers and its communication style. So our dogs communicate in different ways, and you would know that. Consider their health, consider accommodations they may need for themselves, and also the behavioral foundation. What I mean by that is basic behavioral training skills is key, especially during evacuation. And also designate a point of contact and meeting spot. What I mean by that is have a backup person if you're not home to grab your pet, and a place to meet that person in case you are not able to meet at home or at work or wherever. Taking this time. So I've got an example here of a grab list, which we highly encourage you to create. Something that's simple, just list all the items you need for your dog or your pet, and then the location of where you can find those items in 5 or 10 minutes, depending on the time frame before you have to leave. Another option is creating a go bag. If you're one of those people that's like, yes, I'm gonna go all out, these are just some essential items that you can just have ready in your go box or bag. So make sure you have a photo, pet wipes or paper towels, plenty of poop bags always, toys, blankets, towels, pet bed, documentation, which we'll talk more about in the Pet Help and Rescue app, which is an easy way to show your documentation and picture of your pet, digital if you don't have paper copies. Of course, an extra leash or harness if you have that. First aid kit, carrier if you have a cat or a small dog, and then medication and of course food and water. So just basic items. Okay, so we're going to get into the dog training behavior skills. So I highly recommend start with eye contact, which is the basic foundation level that I like to teach all my clients. So eye contact is a way to know that your dog is paying attention to you. And that's really key, especially when a situation is so chaotic. So as long as they're looking at you, you know you have their intention, and then you can ask for whatever other behavior you need from them. So I'd like to show you just a little snippet of what that looks like.
So stop share.
You can, I think you can click. So I'm marking that behavior every time he looks at me. There we go. So the key thing is teaching them how to voluntarily give you eye contact and really capture that behavior. You can also work on name recall. If their recalls are not that great with their name, you can also practice that. But I really like this behavior because the animal chooses to make contact with you. Hi, welcome. Come on. So next, a simple behavior you can start training for is touch, hand touch. So you put your hand out, the dog nose touches your hand, and this is really key for recall, like your dog is out there, and you say, here, and you put your hand out, the dog comes and touches your hand, so you know you got them. It's also great for placement, so if you're trying to get your dog to your side, you can always use a hand touch. So there's different ways to use hand touches. So we'll show you just something simple you can do. And a lot of dogs find this behavior fun. Next, we have emergency recalls. So those are a little bit different than just a regular name recall. An emergency recall, you want to have a special sound or cue for that situation. So Allison was able, my boss, she was able to let us video this emergency recall that she has for her own dog, Charlie. And the key thing is start inside your house when there's no distractions. You may have to start on leash if your dog has, ADHD, it tends to wander around and not pay attention. And then you increase criteria by going from the backyard, outside on leash, to off leash in the backyard, and then to a public place. So in this case, we did it in the dog park.
I'm recording whenever you're ready.
Let's go to 30 seconds.
Hello from Disaster Preparedness
It's
and
okay.
Recovery Department.
She got this
This
whole
week,
spiel.
Superior keeps it simple for National Preparedness Month. Is emergency recall for your pets. I'm going to show you this behavior, and you can find the instructions on how to train your dog in the description. And now I'm going to yell the magic word for Charlie's emergency recall. Not something more. And there you have it.
So you can come up with any kind of sound or cue that's specific for an emergency situation and try to differentiate from their name to that.
And from normal recall in the same too. You want to differentiate it from your normal recall word too, like.
Yeah, because the normal recall will most likely be their name, right? Like,
Or
Charlie.
feeling.
Yeah.
That's my dog.
Yeah.
That's spelled. It is one.
Another really good behavior to really work in practice is loading and unloading in vehicles, because we know that dogs get scared during evacuation because there's just so much chaotic energy going on at that time. So they're rushing to the car, they're like, oh, where are we going? Like, why does everything feel so weird right now? So sometimes it's good to practice beforehand. They may be used to riding in a car, but you may want to emulate the situation. So start feeling like you're in a rush and get your dog to the car and try loading and treat them, okay, you got it down. So, but you wanna build yourself up to that point first. If your dog is not used to riding in the car, start slow. Go to your car, treat the dog, leave, and then build up to that, where you hang down in the car. Then you turn the car, and you treat for that. So there's steps you can take to that, to get your dog used to riding in the car. Some people like to treat their dogs in the car, some people like to have their dogs ride loose, whatever works best for you and your pet. So practice with that. Next, settling. And I know settling can be really hard for some dogs, especially in chaotic situations. So again, start slow. Start going outside, just sitting, letting them observe the environment. Then increase the criteria to going somewhere a little busier, say a coffee shop, sit outside, let them get used to people walking around. Go to a park where there's dogs running off leash and people running on the trail, and just start treating for them choosing to settle. Now you can tell them to lay down and treat them for that. But the key thing is to teach them to make the choice to settle, no matter how chaotic the environment is. That's the ultimate goal, because that will really be beneficial in evacuations. And if you go to a shelter where you're allowed to take your dog, that's going to be helpful, because there's going to be so much going on at the shelter. You want your dog to remain calm. And also, your dog is feeding off your energy. So the more you practice, the better your dog will be. Crating. There's different opinions around crating. It is whatever works best for you and your dog. So if you do want to start crating your dog and getting used to it, I suggest having the crate out in the house, in a room. Just have it out and watch your dog explore that crate. They choose to explore it. You don't make them go. And then once you see them approach the crate, you start treating them for it. You throw treats inside the crate. They start going in and out. They willingly choose what they are comfortable with. And over time, they build the confidence and trust that going in the crate is not a bad thing. And then you can start doing meal times in the crate. You can start doing calms or bones in the crate, but leave the door open. And then over time, just keep building that. And then you can do nap time if you want to try an hour of crating them. So it's a process. So that's a really good behavior to practice. Stranger danger. Stranger danger is probably one of the #1 big problems we have during disasters, which is very unfortunate, but it is something we do need to talk about and trying to encourage the community to really work on slowly. Stranger danger happens because dogs are not exposed as puppies. They have medical issues or they're in pain and you're just not comfortable with people approaching them. It could be a variety of reasons. So what I like to do is, again, the dog makes the choice to greet the stranger. And this is really key to practicing way before a disaster happens, to set your dog up for success. So what I like to do is first, get your dog exposed to going outside. Just be around people, but not have anybody approach the dog. Let the dog decide. If the dog wants to greet a person, let them greet them how they want to greet them. If they want to go up to the person and just sniff them with their legs back there, just do that, that's fine. Treat them for that. Because the next time you build from that. So it's a process. And I'm going to show you 2 videos that I have filmed with my shepherd who has some stranger danger, especially with males. They're not seeing it. Maybe we need to stop this solution. Yeah. Mm.
It's trying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's try. Rooting for you, Zoom. You can do it.
Now I see you, yeah.
Okay, media player, by chance?
Yes, okay,
Yes.
yes. So he's very uncomfortable with Liam, who's one of our close guys on staff. So I just let him express how he wants to express that nervousness. That's totally fine. But I'm gonna make sure I stay close to Liam and show Porter that it's okay. I'm gonna treat him first, trying to get him closer to Liam. And then Liam can treat him. I ask for a hand touch. Liam treats him. We go back and forth. So hand touch is really good for getting dogs to not think about how nervous they get about a stranger, but to think, to perform a task of some sort. So touch, okay, I get a treat. I'm not gonna think about him, but I'm gonna do touch, take the treat, touch, take the treat. So this is a really great way to practice.
Is it Sean? Sean?
Yeah. So Sean's another close guy. He had a different reaction to it. He didn't bark at him, but he was like, So I told Sean, just take the treat out because I didn't get any vocalization from Porter. So I thought that was a really good key step to just say, okay, just pop out the treat. So stranger danger can be a little complicated. And, if you feel like you need more support on how to work through this, contact a local trainer that can help you do that. There are plenty of dog trainers out there that specialize in dog reactivity and stranger danger. Lastly, I like to talk about body sensitivity, which I think is also one of the top 3 problems that we have during evacuations for dogs is a stranger enters the home and tries to grab the dog to get out of the house. And a lot of dogs are like, no, you're not doing that to me. So what I like to tell people is practice body sensitivity behaviors with yourself and the dog first. Just start touching your dog in various areas that they may be uncomfortable with. But don't go and just grab that area. Start with a light touch. Or even start with moving in the direction of that area that's sensitive and treat them for it. And then work your way up to that. Then have other people that they're comfortable with do those behaviors with them and start establishing that relationship with them that anywhere in the body, they know they can trust the person and be okay with that. So, and we have one video for that. Oh, we didn't change. Mm.
This has to be with Sharon. Media player. Okay, that's
Yeah. So this is my partner who is working with Porter on just hologram, treating him for that. He waits to get eye contact from Porter before he proceeds. He always wants to make sure that my dog is seeing him go to grab the collar. Do not just grab the collar when the dog doesn't see it. That will scare them. So start slowly like that. And then he touched his head. which he's not a fan of, but he's learned to become tolerant of. And so you work through that. And there's other areas, like some dogs don't like their paws touched, or their tail, or even just grabbing their tail. So just start looking in various areas that you know your dog is not comfortable with. So, and then lastly, that's the last slide. So, let me know if you have any questions or need resources around dog training. I'm happy to find you a trainer in your area. And then next we have Red Cross. Up. And then look at this. Yeah. So, thank you.
It's Pia Wash. I'm with the American Red Cross, and we're going to talk a little bit about our animal visitation program, which is part of the service to the armed forces, part of Red Cross. There's 5 different functions of Red Cross, and I belong to 2 of them. So we're going to talk a little bit about service to the armed forces. This is my canine Willow. She is a Red Cross therapy dog, and she's also a Red Cross volunteer, so she gets hours. It's like everybody else, and then she's the dogs that you like to see other. So, this is all for you. Yeah. Next. What mainly our program does, what our program really is service to the military, active duty, retirees, veterans, and their family members. And specifically, these programs are in the military treatment facilities and the Veterans Affairs. So that's where the Red Cross has their therapy dogs specifically. And I know Hope's going to talk a little bit about their dogs in crisis response with their dogs. So specifically, we go to the VAs. I'm from Fort Carson down in Colorado Springs. So we visit there. And whenever people want us, sometimes we're prescribed and we'll go to certain appointments. But actually, it's been proven that dogs can provide well-being for both your mental and physical well-being. Just petting a dog when you just had surgery, or you have PTSD. There's a big PTSD unit down in Fort Carson, which we visit very frequently. So while they're hospitalized, that's what we do. We take care of them. They're not for individual going through your homes, but we'll go in group settings, in private in the room if that's what they want as well. So it has been proven that dogs can definitely lower blood pressure just by touching them and anxiety, and you can really open up by talking with the dog, especially even after a disaster, which you've been through in the field or downrange with bombings and killings. And, you know, it's pretty traumatic. Some of the soldiers, you know, what they see downrange now, which they didn't see about, 20 years ago. So they do see a lot of death. They see their friends die. So it really helps when you have the dogs coming in a group, whether we're in group therapy or whether we're individualized. And animals, they don't care who you are, what you look like, if you have no legs. They're unconditional love, so they like anybody, no matter what their age or gender is. And the programs provide an opportunity for people to get a fur fix. Not only the military or the patients in the hospital or their family members, but the doctors and nurses and technicians who also treat these soldiers. So there are 3 different parts of our pet program. We call it the animal visitation program. So it's the Red Cross Animal Visitation Program. So if you ever want to Google it, that's how you Google it. So what we do is we do provide visits to the military treatment facilities, MTF, and installation. We also go if there's suicides in a unit, if there's something bad that happened, if there's a death in the unit, we can go and help provide comfort and care for families, individuals, squadrons, battalions, whatever, to do that. And we also do the Veterans Affairs. So the veterans really like us, and there's hundreds and hundreds. We come up here to the Denver VA, which if you've seen out towards the airport, it's huge. We have a VA in Buffalo, and I also have a VA in Colorado Springs. Now, animal assisted activities, we call them AAAs. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm talking to the public, or talking about our programs. We're visiting with dogs and showing them what we can do for not just the military, but we could do for the public as well in a public setting like this. So it's not really a specific person that we're visiting here, it's a group of people, so we can do group settings. She also does animal assisted therapy, ADT. So animal assisted therapy is when you're doing individual care with a certain time. We do a lot of physical therapy through the doctors, like teaching the soldiers how to walk again with prosthetics. So if we're prescribed, we can go on an animal assisted therapy check. And then we're actually part of the medical treatment plan. They find out that a lot of these soldiers and some of the children of the soldiers, they develop a lot faster if they have an animal by their side. For instance, walking, some of the soldiers have to learn how to walk all over again. So these dogs are trained, they can back up, so they take the two rails as the soldier is walking down, the dog kind of backs up as they're trying to reach before they're actually walking on the ground. So just part of the therapy and part of being around, getting their mind off of what they're trying to do in their part of it. So if you ever want to be part of it, anybody can be part of the Red Cross dog. You do have to have a dog that is certified through a private company or a different company. The Red Cross does not certify therapy animals, but once they're certified, we become part of it. So you must be 18 years or older or 14 to 17, as long as the parent assists you and that parent is also certified in the same. So we do have one at Evans Army Community Hospital that is 16 that comes around with his mom. So his mom's also a certified parent. You do have to have possession of your dog for at least 1 year. So you can't be just a dog you pick up the street and say, yeah, this is a nice calm dog. They have to be trained, they have to be certified. Then you yourself would have to become a Red Cross member. That is how I started in Red Cross. I had a dog that was a hearing impaired trained dog, made a great therapy dog. So I decided I'm going to join Red Cross and we're going to work in the Army. Since there, that was 19 years ago, I've had 3 dogs since. So it kind of morphs along there. The military treatment volunteers, we also need background checks. You're working in a hospital. You have to have HIPAA training, you have background checks, you have to tetanus shots, you have to have all your shots. So you have to have the COVID shots, the flu shots, the pneumonia shots. If you choose, some people don't like to get shots, then you can't be part of the hospital program. So bottom line, all hospital workers have to have your immunizations. We do not deploy with these dogs, so when we have a crisis like what's going on in Louisiana, I just got off a deployment down in Colorado Springs. We had a large apartment fire, so I actually got to deploy locally, but she does not go with. So they're 2 entirely separate programs. The disaster services is the one who deploys to hurricanes and tornadoes and things like that. Any questions on that? And I'm gonna have our Diana Gallagher is my partner up here at Mile High in the Seco chapter down in Colorado Springs. We are also the pet liaisons and the pet champions for the American Red Cross for our region here and the division. So it goes all the way down to Texas and Louisiana and Mississippi, Kansas, Missouri, probably. So we're going to talk a little bit about now that we allow pets in shelters.
Hi, everybody. My name is Diana Gallagher. I'm the Regional Mass Care Manager for the American Red Cross, also Divisional Pet Champion, PLSN. So I'm going to just explain to you a little bit in a very short time about what we are doing right now, Red Cross, with pets in shelters. A couple of years ago, National finally came to good senses that we should allow pets in shelters. In a way, we always did that. It just depended on the shelter manager that was on duty in deployments, but we worked with the clients Our mission is to try to alleviate the human suffering that is caused through a disaster. And so so now it is legit. Now we could allow pets in facilities, and I'll talk a little bit about how we support the roles and the facilities and resources and so on. So, but before I want to before I get to that, I just wanted to explain a little bit. We have now developed nationally pet shelter leads, and there are regional shelter leads and there are chapter shelter leads. And so within our region, our division has 7 states. Each region has a regional shelter lead. Thea and I are currently the divisional pet leads for the 7 states. And then within the region, we have like 5 regions within the Colorado, Wyoming region. And in each region, we have chapter leads. And their role within the chapter, like within Mile High, Kristen Gottney is our Mile High chapter lead. Their role is to try to coordinate and meet animal partners. And so we can call on them whenever there is a disaster. Our goal is we will, right as Red Cross, we will remain focused on the clients. And our goal is to have our partners focus on their pets and kind of work together. Next slide, please. So why did we do this? Well, disasters are all year round. It used to be that I would go on a family vacation and be home by August so I can deploy for the hurricanes. And now it's all year round. Wildfires are all year round. Earthquakes can happen anytime. Hurricanes are starting earlier. And we know that almost 65% of the nation have pets in their homes, and they're treated like families. And one of the things is that if there is a disaster and you are asked to evacuate, some will not evacuate because they can't bring their pets with them. So what's the use? So we thought if we do welcome pets in shelters, they will evacuate. When they're in our shelters, they will be able to recover a lot faster because the whole family, including their pets, are with them recovering. And it's just comfortable. It brings some comfort knowing that they can bring their pets in shelters. Before we would say, I'm sorry, you're welcome to come into our shelter, but you have to leave your pet in the car, and the whole family would just turn around and stay in the car. So, now we're hoping that everybody, including their pets, can come in to where it's safe, it's indoors, everybody can eat and be taken care of.
And one of the things to add to Diana's, what she was talking about, it is FEMA. We work really closely with FEMA on all disasters, sometimes local, but most of the time level 4 and above, so it depends how much money is spent. But they realized a long time ago during Hurricane Katrina, over half the population passed away, which is over 1,800 people died. Over 600 were because they would not evacuate because they couldn't take their pets away. So that's when we realized we got to do something. FEMA's been a good partner with us too. So nationally and locally. So what our process done is split the different types of shelters. There are still shelters that are only going to be your congregate human shelters. For instance, I just got off the DR down in Colorado Springs. We had an apartment fire. The only place we could get that would allow us for a shelter was some churches. The schools were in session. The county could not find a place where people could habitate there. People are still not back in their apartments. They're not going back to that apartment building. So we knew it was going to be a lot. So schools were out, libraries were going to be out. Anything that the county owned was sort of going to be out because it's a public thing during the school time. So we had to go to some churches. These churches did not allow us. It's their church, it's their call. So what do we do with the people that aren't allowed to bring their pets? We are gonna definitely help them find a place to put their pet. Most of the humane societies will put up their pet for 10 to 12 days at no charge. We'll have a lot of different other types of organizations offer to house the pets for them. But it is not co-located, which is. So our mission is a co-located. Of course, for kind of human shelters, you always allow services. That's by ATD rules. I'm sorry, American Disability. So American Disabilities requires them to allow. So we did have one service dog in the church that allowed that, they couldn't deny it. They don't have to be kenneled, they don't even have to have registration. We can ask 2 questions with Red Cross to determine if it really is a service dog. For instance, is this your dog? That performed the test for you, and if so, what is that? And that's all you can ask. You can't ask for anything on the job. Well, located shelter is the norm that we're trying to do with Red Cross now, where the clients are co-located with their pets on the same campus or in the general area they can walk to be with their pets. They're not going to be at bedside. They won't be eating with them. They'll still be kenneled, maybe in a separate room, which would be ideal, or a basement of the facility, so that you can control access to their property. We're going to protect them. Some states, there's a high risk of stealing animals. The South was really big on that. We haven't found it here. But we're going to try to put them in close proximity to their own, so that the owners still provide care for them. They give them medication, they're going to feed them, they're going to walk them. It won't be Red Cross walking your dogs, or the agency that's given jurisdiction over that pet sheltering to walk the dogs. It will still be part of their recovery process to take care of their animal like they would on a normal basis. So that is our main goal right there. Now, the cohabitated shelters, it can be done in case of an emergency, like if the hurricane's coming, you've had 3 weeks to prepare, you know hurricanes are coming way in advance. Just like we watch the coast of Florida and the Gulf Coast every day, we're watching what's coming in now, because we're in the middle of hurricane season. If it's an emergency, you want to get the pets in, you want to get the people in to be safe. Like, get in here right now, we don't care if they have a kennel yet, just get in here, we're gonna be safe. And that only lasts for about 24 hours. This does have to go through our director of operations of that disaster through headquarters, Red Cross, to make sure they know this is an emergency. We're doing it for 24 hours only until they can get resettled and where the storm passes. And then we'll work back to the co-located touch.
And I have a question about that.
Sure.
I mean, I'm just thinking of like my dog in particular. I mean, I almost think it would be more traumatizing for my dog to be in the one where I couldn't bring her and she had to go to the Humane Society or wherever for 10 days than to be, I don't know. I mean, I know there's nothing you can do about it, but
Right.
it just seems like it's actually traumatizing the dog more. Or the, what is traumatizing from their owners. Right, to be in the co, what is
And
it
that's
called?
why our goal is to, yeah,
Yeah,
our goal is to find shelters that will work. Such as we have 2 shelters open in Louisiana, they do a lot. So they have a room, but the good thing, schools are closed right now after the hurricane hit, well, they're back to which. So the school's not in session, so schools are great, any type of public facility, but if that's all you get is a church and we'll do the best we can. We work with the local agencies. For instance, I'm from the Springs. We have trailers that the Humane Society will bring on location.
oh, okay.
That are air conditioned and heated. It's just like a big semi with about 20 different kennels in it, but every community does it. There's smaller communities east of here where we have a lot of wildfires going on. Here in Superior, of course, the county actually took care of during this Marshall Fund here. So they didn't have to worry. But you do what you can do. In Florida, the Humane Society will come in and put up tents. They do have to be climate controlled to be humane. So they're not gonna stick dogs in a kennel outside in 100-degree heat. That's just inhumane. So we're gonna do the best we can with what we have. Luckily, everyone agreed with their pets that they either went to get a hotel on their own. And then subsequently, they did get funding for reimbursement of that, but not specifically for that. We call it climate assistance. But it's their choice. We always recommend pet insurance because if you are mandatorily evacuated, either your pet insurance or your homeowner's insurance should cover those. So, but more often than not, people don't have insurance during a fire. Should be surprised.
I'll ask those, so like with those tax with a client assistance card that people are given, that's probably, is that more for local level of that? I mean, if it's like a federally prepared disaster, are they really gonna be able to reimburse the federal?
Well, between being and us, it kind of depends what level we're at. We do local, like the local health center. We get a certain amount of money from many people. If it's like more than 48 hours. So there's all these sorts of rules before they get money. But with FEMA, like if there's flooding, FEMA's the only one that can do footage or approve that footage. So if you don't have it, or you can pay out of Louisiana. These people have been through it over. They're not going to be paid out 3, 4, 5 times for their house use, but they do rebuild it. So that's what they do. So when we're in the streets in Louisiana, we don't wear a red cross vest, so we're like, you have to register to get FEMA resources. But it's up to these individual activities to determine who is eligible and who is not. What we do is we give them client assistance, which merely is a little bit of money per family member to for your immediate needs. If you we'll take care of some glasses, if you use glasses, hearing aids, things like that. But if you need some, if you need a pair of shoes, if you need some clothing, here's some money to go. But as long as we have shelters open, we're going to take care of their needs in the shelter, all their food, all their well-being. We have mental health services, disaster health services, health care, spiritual care. So we have everything in a shelter. But it's when they leave the shelter, we can still give them assistance with helping agents. It depends how they go.
And another comment to make after your question is Red Cross is responsible for all the shelter surveys. And so if the church, for instance, calls us and says, we want to be a possible evacuation center or shelter, we go and we have to survey. We look around to see how many ADA bathrooms there are and so forth. And we measure, can this room be used as a dorm area? Or can it be a feeding area, or could be a registration? We kind of start planning ahead, and we're asking the facilities that if they are a pet-friendly shelter facility. If they say no, we try to talk them into saying yes. Because sometimes I just imagine a bunch of dogs just going wild, without the leash. Yeah, it's not like that. They're all crated, they're all taken care of. Well, the owners are responsible, so yeah.
Now, later on this spring, Diane and I did go to the state capitol, and we were part of a team that passed an amendment, and Governor Polis signed it, that it doesn't really require, it highly encourages every county to have at least one shelter. So really, that's up to your EOCs, your emergency operations centers, your emergency managers of that city to find us one shelter. But you do what you can, and if the answer is like, we have schools, of course, not gonna go there. So it's.
I'll also say that I previously worked for a city cabinet member, and we didn't have any shelters that we had from the city perspective. The Red Cross, from a city perspective, we didn't have any shelters that were pet friendly. But when there is actually a disaster, that can change, and it's not have to find accommodations because. Whether you like it or not, people. I can't really be like,
Especially if it's a county-owned facility, if the library says, no, for pets, it's like, this is a county facility, we're under a law. They can say this is the only thing. And we're gonna house them, we're gonna protect them, they're gonna be kenneled, they're gonna be taken care of, and the humane societies and ASPCA's, whoever your partner is, will cover the floors. So it works, and they're gonna have lights on, lights off time, it's not like a petting zoo where everybody gets to come in and see the dogs, it's very controlled. So. Anyway.
So what is a household pet? You ask. I can ask anybody. I can get a bunch of different answers. Yeah, well, my miniature pony is, or my little pig. Runs around in the house, but it is a household pet is defined for Red Cross as a dog, cat, hamster, guinea pigs. If they have, sometimes, they will have a snake, but they'll have to make sure that they are in the container, and that's when if we have something exotic, which I hope they don't, then we'll always ask the professionals to come in and help out with that.
And professionals are.
Agencies having jurisdiction, it could be the Humane Society, it could be, any animal organization vets that are very familiar with these type of pets.
And the county will decide who that is. According to what they need.
Again, Red Cross is not going into the animal business, but we only focus and take care of the pets, the household pets. But we also work with ESF 11 and other partners to gather information, where are the horses? What's the ESF? Yeah.
Emergency operations that are held. Boulder is a different. They have like 20, but there's usually about 12 to 15 different agencies. Where we're on ESF 6, which is your mass care, feeding, sheltering, things like that. ESF 8 is your human resources, where the HHS would come in, health and welfare, where 11 deals with that. Too much. Oh, okay, so collective talked about pet care and shelter. It is still maintained by responsibility of those clients, the owners of your pets. They included feeding, picking up after your pets, any type of medication treatment. So when we have these pets contained, like I said, it's not a petting zoo, or even the staff just can't go in and like put your fingers in and pet the animals. You do have privileges, so but we don't want to agitate them. These animals have already been agitated enough. They've been displaced, they've been through traumatic things, thrown in a kennel already. Especially if they're not used to, that's why Tyler talking about making sure your dog knows what a kennel is. It's not a punishment, but it could keep them safe too. We're gonna, with the Red Cross as a pet liaison, that's when Diana and I would be deployed. In a deployed location, we work at the headquarters level. So we would coordinate with our government operations folks of who that agency that they've decided to run our shelters. And they would be the ones bringing in their volunteers, providing food. If the people don't have food, we'll provide whatever, but the owners still have to take care of them. So it's also a way for us to make sure these animals are taken care of. If you don't walk your pet, if you're not around for 3 or 4 days, that's animal abuse. So you have your people that know animals. It's like, this person hasn't been here in 4 days, this is abandoned, but we don't deal with that, they deal. And they have rules for the county of when you abandon your pet, when you're mistreating them, when you're not providing, proper attention to them. Our non-government agencies, we can have MOUs with them, such as different veterinarians, if they wanna come in. We have an MOU with them, which is memorandum of understanding how they operate, how we operate. A lot of pet stores, sometimes if you're in a shelter for 3-4 months. Maui, we still have clients in shelter. So, these animals are gonna need to be groomed, they're gonna need to have their nails done, and just a general health checkups for the year down there. So we do have volunteer groomers that'll come in and cut their nails. Donated services as well. There was one more. Or is that it? I forgot.
One more.
This briefing is more like 2 hours.
So, yeah, we're deployed as pet liaisons. We do, first question is, who are the agencies having jurisdiction? We work very closely with, we're mass care, but within the Red Cross, it's huge. When we are in the deployment in a disaster response operation, we've got government operations, we've got, logistics, disaster assessment, and so our first thing when we get to headquarters is who is in charge, who's talking back and forth with the county or with the state. And they'll give us a list of the agencies having jurisdiction, and we call them to see what resources are available for our shelters for the pets. Whether it's food, crates, leashes. A lot of times also, these items could also be donated through the community. They'll come up and it's really great how everybody just gets involved. Salvation Army also provides pet food. Let's see what else. Oh, there's the fulfillment team, that's part of logistics, and instead of, we have a form, it's called the 6409 that we fill out for supplies. So we have to fill those supplies, we send it in to the logistics team, and then in the next day, they come to the shelter and we bring everything on that list. Now there is a fulfillment team that literally drives box truck around with daily supplies, what is needed. So they have more cots, they may have some pet food, they may have extra crates. And so when they drive around to each shelter, and instead of filling out the 6409, it's already in the truck, and we don't have to fill out any forms, which is really awesome.
And we're gonna do the best we can for the pets. Every pet has a different food, there must be 10,000. We're gonna provide dog food, cat food, and a soft food, and for both cats and dogs. But we may not have nearly like mice to feed the snakes. So the client would also be responsible for anything that's not normal, the normal type of food. But we're gonna do the best we can and get what we can. Now, if you're a human and have a baby, we're gonna get you the formula you want for that baby, if possible. But dogs, dogs and cats and lizards and iguanas, we're gonna do what we can now. We're gonna do the best we can to get the right food for them.
Well, it's been a couple of years since we did that, we got recently about the problem in Louisville, but I will say if you were there. There was all these wonderful community-based organizations there, NGOs, people were helping each other, always getting donations for everybody, baby food, and then there was an entire block. Of donated items for the community. Yeah, so when you think about that, I think we just saw a statistic the other day that was like 65% people consider their pet like a human family member. So thinking 2/3 of people are thinking that. There's also some statistic that people spend like 8 times more in this country on their pets than they do on babies, human babies. So just knowing that you're in Colorado, if you're affected by an emergency or disaster, and protective disruption, your pet family will come to you here.
And in the Marshall Fire, the Boulder Humane Society was there at the disaster recovery center with us. They got so many donations, they had to move to a store with them.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we're right.
plus we had to run. So it was just so much stuff.
Yeah, we love our pets, they are a part of our family. Are there any other questions? Yes. In the cohabited and co-located shelters, is there a limit of pets per family allowed in shelters?
No. No, I was just, during, after Hurricane Beryl, I was deployed to Houston as a pet liaison, my first time deployed as a pet liaison, it was wonderful, but I was visiting the shelter and they had a dog inside the dorm area. And as I'm talking to them, you know, what do you need? How are you doing? Oh, by the way, we have 10 cats in our. And it's Houston, hot, humid, and I'm like, okay, can you show me? And so, you know, I was just worried that they were gonna open up the door and they'd all be dead of heat exhaustion, but they kept running the air conditioning. And the lady started saying, yeah, we're spending $50 a day because the car is currently running. And so I asked the supervisor and the facility manager, why aren't these cats inside? They're part of the family. And I mean, 10 cats, personally, I think it's a little too much, but it's. So, we made it happen. We called a local partner. They, let us borrow some crates. We walked around the facility and we found a really nice quiet stairwell that had doors and we set it up. It looked like a little pet store in there, but they were able to get out of their cars. So, yeah, any animal were good.
Is there any testing done for pets that come in, for like parasites or diseases or anything?
That is a very, very good question, and this is why we need our partners, because we can't do that. Our focus is on the clients. We can't do any pet testing. But we do work with local veterans that they come in there and they walk around the shelter and. Yes, I'm sorry, veterinarians, not veterans. That walk around the shelter and they'll ask questions, you know, they're free to ask questions. Are they up to date in their vaccinations? And if not, maybe give them their vaccinations or test for, you know, our biggest concern could be parvo. Is there a little puppy that comes in and we don't know? And so that's why we really, really need to work very closely with partner organizations.
And the new doctrine for Red Cross, it should be out anytime. We've been allowing kids in shelter for 2 years, so we've been using a doctrine that's a little bit aged. So we're anxiously awaiting to see what shots are gonna be required. For sure, rabies is gonna be the required shot. If the client cannot prove they have rabies, you're supposed to wear your tag by law. Most of these dogs don't have tags. Who goes around carrying their shot for the pets? I don't know. They should have been, I know. But in the top, but most people don't. So if the veterinarian's open, we can call them. There's a lot of things before we can accept them into the shelter. If you can't prove it, there's no harm in giving them an additional shot if they want to stay, because rabies especially, that's a transmittable disease. So we're also protecting our clients, such as the dogs. We're protecting our clients from getting bit. Things happen, you know, unfortunately.
Wait, so you're saying that if somebody has been able to do that, because I'm just thinking like from an equity standpoint, some people might not have gotten their animals vaccinated because they feel like they can't afford that method or
Dates.
yeah. And so you're saying that could theoretically happen.
Absolutely. Once Red Cross comes, it's still going through all of this different stages of legal approvals and everything. So we're hoping to have that soon. Right now, we have to make the best judgment we can, hoping our partners help us out there as well. But there'll be requirements if you want to come in the shelter, just like working in a hospital. If I don't have a TB test, I don't want them. I know that. I'm in the hospital, get a TB test. So, and when COVID was here, you know, you don't want it. You give you a shot.
But you're not gonna turn people away if they can't prove it, I mean, they
What
can't.
we would do is, we would try to work with them to do that, or we could find them a different location. To cohabitate, if you will, but they would have. Shelters. We don't do hotel shelters, that was only during COVID, where clients would go to a hotel room with us.
But then that liaison.
So I know there's a lot more questions. I just want to be respectful of everybody's presentation time, so let's move on to the next presentation. But there's plenty of time afterwards for more questions and to chat. So, thank you so much. So next up, we have Hope Therapy Dog that's gonna talk about their mission. And there's no presentation for it, so they're just gonna come up and talk.
Hello, I'm Fred Capper. I'm part of the Hope Foundation. It's an animal crisis response team. We are all volunteer force that was formed after 9/11. There was a need after that event. Obviously, people were showing up with dogs. We used the therapy dog, which these are therapy dogs, to help with people. Well, you run into issues with like people just bringing their pets and they're not trained. So, they've come up with a nationally certified program that the dogs and us go through to get certified, so we can go into disaster areas, school shooting type things, and bring our therapy dogs for that kind of stuff. As I said, we're all volunteer, we do not charge. Some of the things we've done around here are the Marshall Fire, the Boulder King Super shooting. Is that?
The East High School shooting.
East High School shooting, so things like that. I know that some people in our Rocky Mountain region went down, for instance, to when condos collapsed in that condo collapsed in Florida. Our teams are regionally based, meaning Rocky Mountain, east, west, but we can fly if the need is there. Our dogs, they're trained to get on planes and fly to those locations to help support if demand is there. There's 300 teams nationally and in Canada. In fact, this year at our training program that got dog certified, which she just passed, this is Allie. We did have two teams from Canada in the Rocky Mountain region that are now part of that too. So it's the United States and Canada combined.
The Jasper area and all of that.
I don't know if we had teams up there. We don't go to everyone. People have to request. We can't just, part of the reason we can't just show up is that's why it was created. So people have to put in a request. And once the request is going, then they put out the work for us to go to. As I said, some things get paid for, but most, a lot of it's the volunteers, just like at the Red Cross, they take their dogs and take their food and take their food and everything else. So that's kind of our mission. Thea, of course, is double duty. She does Red Cross and Hope with Willow, and my wife Robin is back there with their other dog, Wakana. But if you're interested in becoming part, we do have brochures back there if you're more interested in learning about Hope. But if you, like Thea mentioned about therapy dogs, both of these got certified at one to be therapy dogs. Then you have to basically work in a hospital for about a year with your dog. Once that happens, then you can go through the process of going through the Hope training, which is more rigorous than pet therapy, because you get trained around fire trucks. We didn't really get trained around tense psychological stuff, but that's part of it too, because the dogs do sense that that kind of stuff. In fact, we were at a hospital a couple of weeks ago, and unfortunately, a three-day-old baby passed away. So we came in with the dog at the hospital there, and she loves babies, but you could definitely see a change in her behavior because the baby was passed. So it's interesting. Any questions or? Yeah.
So in the instance, for example, of the Surfside collapse in Miami-Dade, that's their county, their EMs, emergency managers are inviting you guys in. Are
Yes,
they like putting you up when you're there? How does that?
it depends. Most cases, yes, sometimes that has to be sponsored, I believe, by other people that donate to
Okay,
us. Sometimes we pay ourselves.
you
but-
individually or as an
Yes.
organization? Okay.
Or both, a combination of both. So yeah,
But like, South Dakota Lewiston shootings in Maine, Southwest and JetBlue.
Yeah.
Out there.
teams out there.
Which there, we cover our own costs unless FEMA steps in. And then we can get them reimbursed. Well, yeah, I have to go through FEMA first.
When you bring that, let's get the collapse and things like 9/11. Our dogs are trained to be in those situations because you have a lot of physical damage, concrete. So we train them to use the little booties and things like that and to be around that. Because some dogs got pretty seriously hurt that were brought to like 9/11,
Yeah.
so forth, so. Any other?
Yeah, question, and so we both work in the schools, and I was just curious, I know you have to be requested, but once that happens, do you find that you have to clear a lot of red tape with the, or can you get there pretty quickly, you know, based on your own?
If we're requested, generally speaking, I believe we contact our regional manager, they probably have a little form. And then they'll set up usually a schedule for us to go, but generally, it's not weekly. Yeah, it'll be the.
Had a school shooting in Denver. We were there the next. So. Yeah, especially about the first shoots on. Right, or so that we were there for. And we're there for the first shoot on.
And if you call the number on the brochures to request, you actually talk to a person. She might just be this girl, right? But she will tell you everything. With all the original.
And a bigger disaster, it kind of works how Red Cross works with them. I was the shelter manager down in Central Florida when he hit. So I have 14 shelters under my purview in Central Florida. So I was able to get the hope teams from the South Carolina, North Carolina, and Florida regions to come down and visit them for the time to finish. And they came down on their own and did it at the branch. And they showed houses, we stayed each other's house, things like that. So,
Do you have any type of psychological well-being program for the dogs? How would you recuperate one from a traumatic incident they were?
We don't have the formal, we have to go through the formal training, but I'm not aware of any dogs or you. I think this is where the first thing you're trained a therapy dog is you have to be the advocate for the dog first. The dog's most important, so even if I brought Allie today and she was going, she just wasn't comfortable, you pull her out and you don't force them to do it. So if they had worked, 2 or 3 days and you could tell they're done, you just pull them and tell them, we can't come for a while and give them a break and let them be dogs for a while. But as far as formal training, we don't have any of that, I don't believe. We do have to get them trained. We have to train them on pet first aid, human first aid, human psychological trauma training. Put your head in. Her rocks get a little heavy there.
And then you also, like with Allie, when she's done, she likes to chew on hard knuckle bones. So when she gets stressed, we give her a bone. We don't give it to her when she's stressed. But we'll kind of be.
Did you feel like she needed a day, a couple of days to recover after the baby?
No, she didn't, it was more because the parents were holding the baby. So I brought her in and just kind of brought her up to the parents because they wanted a pet. And even with babies who are alive, you can just tell the difference in the dog because they really are interested in babies. And I don't know if it's because she's a female, but she sensed something and Robin just grabbed her and pulled her out. She wasn't doing anything crazy, but. You know, it was different, and Makana just sat there with the parents, but there was definitely a sense that was different.
And they're not all the same breed, so.
They are, they're both golden retrievers. Actually, we've got all 3 colors of golden retrievers. Thea has a middle white, light white, we have a really white, and then we've got a field golden right here.
So our goal is to, as far as I know, there are the number one dog to do this kind of work. Are there other breeds?
All breeds, the only. You know, like when I worked at Good Sam's, my old dog is a therapy dog. Anyway, when I worked at Good Sam's, they had a long-haired German Shepherd. There's every dog.
We have a massive.
Yeah. We've got a Mastiff that stands about yay tall. So we have, you know, dogs that are smaller than cats, but we have dogs that are as big as lions, so any breed. They just have to pass the therapy dog training, get certified, do it for a while, and then get into it. So. Any final questions?
Thank you.
How's everybody doing online? Any questions? Well, put some questions in the chat. If you have any questions, we're going to continue on our next presentation. David Coughlin, he's going to talk about the Pet Help and Rescue app. So I'm going to pull that out.
Here's my pointer. So, my name is David Crawford, and I'm with a nonprofit that's based here in Boulder County. It's called Animal Health Now. We had an existing app, namesake Animal Health Now app, which is a nationwide app for wildlife emergencies. So if a bird hits your window, or if you've seen a turtle get hit by a car, you can use our app to find assistance. We direct to the closest.
Sorry,
You can use
just
it.
tried it. Okay.
We direct to the closest wildlife rehabilitator or other wildlife emergency professional. We have been, our usage of our app has increased year over year. We're the #1 app in the nation for wildlife emergencies. And we were used about 127,000 times last year across the country for various wildlife emergencies. We also operate humane wildlife conflicts. Find truly humane resolution for what one might call nuisance wildlife issue. So we're gonna have a lot of slides too. I'm sorry.
I'm trying to make
was-
sure the people online see it. For some
Good.
reason, I'm just having trouble.
Good.
It's not good. Full
Uh,
screen.
I'm really grateful.
Allison,
Taylor and Allison for making this happen.
how do I make sure it shows up?
Glad to be here as part of this.
I'm trying to.
I'll tell you my own
Full
personal
screen.
story
No,
with the fire, the Marshall
See?
fire. So I
not that
live
shit.
right down here in original town.
Mm-hmm.
And I went out that morning and I saw that, I smelled smoke, I saw the column of smoke running parallel to the ground. Grabbed my phone to go to the end of the street and see if I could find out what was going on. I really couldn't.
Okay. Okay.
Couldn't see where it was coming from, but it was distressing. And okay, so we can go ahead and get past that one. I'll come back to that in a second.
Okay.
So again, the origin story of the app, really, I got back to my house after failing to discover what was going on with the smoke, and my neighbor told me that we were evacuated. And so I grabbed my cats, my two elderly cats. I'm so grateful that I was home, and I'm so sorry for the people who weren't. But I grabbed my cats and I took time to go around the block once to try to notify some neighbors, make sure, because there was no formal evacuation notice. Nobody knew that we were evacuating, with word of mouth. And when I went around the block, one of the doors I knocked on, I heard a barking, and that was a dog by the name of Chief. And I talked to my neighbor who had told me we were evacuating, and I said, you know, you're a dog person, you've got a truck. Can you help if we can't get in touch with the owner of the house? And he said yes. And so sure enough, we couldn't get in touch with the owner of the house, not in time anyway. So Mike went, kicked in the door, and got Chief out of a crate, out of the kitchen, and into a truck, into his truck, and he saved his life. But what happened in that same trip around the block is that I went by a house with a cockatiel, I went by a house with a turtle and a tortoise, I went by a house with 2 dogs and a cat, another with a cat, and another with a cat. And those animals didn't survive. I didn't know they were there, and they perished. One of those homes, the home with the 2 dogs and a cat, they were trying to reach me that morning, but they couldn't get through with all of the various communication that was happening with my phone, texts and phone calls, and et cetera, that happen when there's an evacuation in an emergency. So it was obvious that we needed, there was an opportunity here, that there is no technological solution to the problem of getting animals out in advance if you're not home. So that's why we created the app. I won't step back too far, but with Animal Help Now, with the Wildlife app, the numbers are massive. So I often ask people to guess how many birds die in collisions with windows in the United States alone every year. And usually we're off by, people are off by at least an order of magnitude, sometimes 2. But a billion birds. And when you do the math on that, that's I think it's 30 per second happening right now around this country. So there's a huge need just for that. And cats and dogs kill more animals than windows do. It's amazing that we have any wildlife left when you think about it. So yeah, let's go forward. I'm going to give you a demonstration today of the app so you can understand how it works. We're really focusing our messaging right now on evacuation. So next slide, please. What my experience in the Marshall Fire was not a new experience, and Leslie and Dr. Andre and Corner did a study of the Marshall Fire. They confirmed what we have been gradually coming to terms with, which is when evacuations strike, or when evacuations occur, your best chance of having, you're not home, your best chance of having your pets saved is by having neighbors evacuate them. You know, a lot of the discussion today, critical area on post disasters. This is trying to keep as many animals with their families and alive before the disaster strike. So here's how the app works. The first thing is, and I'm sorry, this is I'm doubting that this is legible. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So there's 3 things you got to do when you download the app. The app's free, of course. You got to tell us about yourself. Not a lot, just a little bit. You got to tell us about your pets, who's dependent upon you, and you've got to build a couple of contacts in your neighborhood. So those are 3 things you need to use this app. Next slide. Okay.
You can tell me what a point you want.
That's okay. Next slide. Are we on the next slide? Okay. So this is what your homepage is going to look like. Forget about these 2 screens. Forget about the two screens to the right. We're going to be focused on the screen to the left. And here you've got, that's where your own personal information is, upper right corner. And then you've got, that's what I just mentioned, you've got your own personal information, and then you've got your pet's information down here and your contact. So those are three things. Let's go to the next slide, please. So here's what we have for your personal information. There are two things on here that I want to point out. This is just basic information on yourself, where you live, your phone number. But there are two things here. One is this, I can help, the green check mark. That means that you are able to evacuate other people's animals if they need your help. If you are infirm, if you're laid up, and you can't, you just get the option of saying I cannot help. So you get a broken leg, you're out for a while, change your status to I cannot help. The other thing is the home access information, very bottom. And that's kind of, sensitive information. You're putting in and out how to get into your house. We safeguard that information by having it never leave the device. That does not go to the cloud. It's not stored with the rest of your data. It's stored on your device. The only time that leaves your device is when you ask for evacuation. And you can choose to not include it. I'll show you that in a little bit.
I'm really glad you said that because I set this up a while ago and we had talked and I was nervous to put in the garage code and I was like, oh, test for garage code. Where did we go? So now I see you, I hear one.
Yeah, good, good. Yeah, we had a lot of discussions about how to make that secure. And I totally agree. Okay, so this is back to the homepage. Next slide, please. I copied all these from the demo that I normally give, where I could do this in real time. Okay, so this is, we just looked at your personal profile information. This is looking at your pet's information. So this person, CJ, I think, has a cat, has some chickens, and has a dog. Let's see the next slide. Okay, this is the cat. This is Junebug. This happens to be my little sweetheart. And you got a description of him. You've got where he tends to be, and where you're apt to find him, where he might hide, where his meds are. We're working with Dr. Andre to add some fields such as microchip number and other information, where the medications are, etc. Next slide, please. Obviously, we have a description of the animal, and we have other information for where the go back, the animal's go back might be, etc. Next slide. And of course, this information is all made available to the people who are doing the rescue and the evacuation. Next slide, please. So this is when you first enter information on a pet. And you'll notice that there's this pet group profile. You might recall that I just mentioned chickens. If you go to the next slide, these are the different animal types that we currently list. And this is certainly open for improvement, modification, enhancement, etc. But if you go ahead and if you were to choose, let's see what the next screen looks like. Okay, you could, let's go back, maybe. One more, please. Okay, so pet group profile. We wanted to make sure that, people with a lot of hamsters, or people with chickens in the backyard, or people with fishes in their tank, that they also had an opportunity. Some of these animals don't necessarily all have names, but we did provide for a pet group profile so that you can not just help individual animals, but help small groups of animals. Next two slides. And then one more. And then your contacts. This is the third part. You got your own information, you've got the animal's information, and you've got your contacts. These are your neighbors for the most part. There's an exception to this. So this user has 4 contacts. Can anybody guess what that minus sign means next to Annie Johnson's?
And not help.
Cannot help. Good.
Mhm.
Okay, so, when you want to invite a new contact, you do that through the app. These people have to have the app. That's how the communication happens. That's one of the things, one of the features of the app. Again, born of our experience in the Market Fire, that now, if you're in the middle of a disaster and you're evacuating, you can focus on one type of communication, and that's the FAR app, to make sure that the most important thing, which is saving your animals, occurs, and you're not getting mixed into the chaos of all the other texts and phone calls and social media messages you're getting when a disaster strikes. You're getting a lot. Everybody's checking. So those people all have the FAR app as well. Next screen, please. One more. Okay, actually, let's go back real quick. This is working really well. So I'm going to request an evacuation. So remember, all of this stuff is done in advance. So everything I just mentioned, you got that taken care of. So when a disaster threatens or strikes, all you got to do is open up your app and tap request pet help / rescue. And we'll probably change that to request pet evacuation, because we're finding that the word rescue is confusing for some people.
And so you can do that whether you're home or not.
Yes, exactly. So request, and then when you tap that, right, you get this screen. So I mentioned earlier that you don't necessarily have to have, these people don't necessarily have to be your neighbors, because you can use the app for non-emergencies. So if you just can't make it home from work, or you're stuck at the airport, you need somebody to go over and feed the cats or let the dogs out, you can use the non-emergency function. And that's down there. But let's stick with the emergency. As you'll see, all of your contacts are chosen except for Annie, who indicates she can't help. We try to think of everything here. I don't want to get too bogged down in details, but we try to think of everything. If you know that Annie's off with crutches and she just forgot to set your status back to I can help, you can go ahead and select Annie to include. With the animals, let's go to the next screen. I think that's on there. Okay, so with the animals, if Clyde the dog is with you, then you unselect Clyde. That makes sense? Because you don't want people in your house looking for Clyde when Clyde is not there. Insert your home access information. We talked about that. By default, it's included, but you can, if you have some reason for not included, you can clear that checkbox. And then you send the message. And next slide.
Sorry, I'm on the app. I finally got on the app. Where is this when you add your information about how to get into your house? Is it in my profile?
Yes.
Okay.
The very bottom of your profile.
Okay.
Okay, so we're in it. Now, these screen captures are taken from a simulator on a Mac, and the notifications don't work as they do in real life Mac simulator. So you don't see, you get a notification here, but these people are also, Annie's not going to get one because she's she wasn't notified. But this person would get this notification that said pet help request, pet rescue request, captured you in app. And next screen. And this CJ is one of the 3 people who received that request for help. CJ gets the message, he goes into his app, and he can tap on help those pets. If he does that screen, then he sees this request. And we're having a little bit of a discussion about how much information to include in the request for help. The additional information is going to be under here, view Bo's pets information. But we try to include what's most important. I didn't unselect Clyde, so Clyde is still in here. Before I sent that message, that was just an example. And then next slide. We're now basically, I wasn't expecting. Oh, no, okay, so here, he can go ahead and do the next slide. So he did actually go to see what more information on these animals. We do that. So I forgot, where does that cat hide? We want you to be practicing with your neighbors. We want, specifically today, we want, for me, We want you to be your dog, your neighbor's dog, to become perfect. We want you to know, what your neighbor's cats look like, et cetera. So you can go in here and get that information. But more often than not. One more. One more. Oh, no. New response here. I'll head over in a few minutes. And then the person who sent the message gets that out of everyone in a few minutes. And that. It.
Can I ask you a quick question? You might have said this and I might have missed it, but are notifications like when they pop up as a banner on your phone, is that automatic with this app or do you have to enable that like you do with other?
We help you enable it, but you are given the option to not use notifications. But you absolutely, if you don't allow notifications, the app doesn't work.
Exactly, because you have to be like randomly checking your app all the time.
Yes.
Okay.
And it's a little different between Android and iOS devices. So we recommend you go to our resources page and just kind of read through and make sure you're well set up on that. Yes.
I don't know the section on like medications, including medical conditions. What I get there is section for like medical conditions, like for example, when it's stress because it becomes infectious with the person certified with some.
We have a field called other information.
Okay.
We're down to go. But by all means, if you have a suggestion for how to better handle that, just get in touch with us. We're really easy to find. Any other questions?
So when you have your contacts responding.
Yeah.
How do the other contacts know that somebody's already taken care of that response?
That's all, they're all on the same thread.
So it's like a group.
So you're gonna see that, yeah, and we're dealing with some of the nuances, like. If somebody says, oh my gosh, stop asking for my help and deletes that person as a contact, that everybody in that thread knows that, so that they know they can't count on CJ. To rescue that animal.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
I like the don't call him, he can't help, so no one can help him. Hey everyone, I'll just say a quick hello as Taylor gets my slides up. My name is Dr. Kasara Andre. I'm with this team in the back. We're the Front Range Veterinary Medical Repair Report, and we'll be around afterwards, so feel free to bring us questions. I'll do introduction a little bit. There we go. Fantastic. We are so thrilled to be with y'all this morning with all of these amazing disaster response partners. Excited to focus on canine preparedness. We've done a class with Superior on feline preparedness before, which was so fun and really amazing to see the cat parents be as enthusiastic about kennel training and touch training as dog owners. So thank you all dog owners for being here today. I can go next slide. Just a little bit of intro. We are going to focus today on resiliency, both behavioral resiliency, which Taylor's already talked about, but my piece today is going to focus more on medical resiliency. I am a practicing veterinarian here in Colorado. I'm just kidding, y'all can know what I'm a practicing veterinarian here in Colorado. I'm also a veteran. I served as a veterinarian for the US military in my early career, did disaster preparedness at a national federal level. So once a disaster gets beyond what state can handle and some of the regions, then federal assistance might be requested. So my last duty site was on Fort Bragg, 248, which is the deployable unit, and we essentially had our entire clinic packed up in these amazing boxes, and it was a really fantastic experience to be able to bring into some of the work that we're doing here in more of the civilian disaster response perspective. But that was definitely a shaping piece of my career. I moved to Colorado to work with the ROTC. I was an officer in operations and planning at brigade level for one of the unit stations at Fort Simmons. And we essentially taught 20-year-old kids at Boulder how to be officers, officership, self-organization, leadership. It was fun. But what I think I really took from that was the importance of education before there's an incident, education before that adrenaline gets really high, practicing with the team before you have a lot of stuff come at you. And I think that's really important when we think about family units as teams, to practice together, to have your pod, whether it's connected via an app or a neighbor that you can walk next door and say hi to. How are you practicing as a family unit to make sure that your canine is prepared just as you are? So we are the Front Range Veterinary Reserve Corps. This is a picture of this year, so Quarry Fire in Jefferson County. Our team was responsible, well, we were at the large animal evacuation site at Island Grove. Someone remember when the ring of fires around Denver was super scary? We were also involved in Marfa Fire. We did some of the donation management when Old Duquesne was like, can't get in the door. People buy the stuff for it. So what we do is make our local veterinary resources available to state, county, federal. If they're looking for a veterinary team, veterinary technicians, we're the ones who say, oh, I got time, I'm gonna slide in and assist. We're not usually on those teams directly. Next slide. All right, so a little bit about us as a team, just so you kind of know the perspective of this information. This QR code does go to a list of our disaster services. If anyone's interested in knowing more specifically what we do or joining our team and volunteering. And you can see in that sentence there, our role is to connect all of these different organizations to local veterinary resources. So that might be personnel resources, that might be medical supplies, that might just be the planning and resources of veterinary trained brains before you go into a disaster. Here's 4 of our big missions that we're working on now. So the prep pets for evacuations is kind of that piece I'm going to pull out and talk about at the moment. But we also offer veterinary input for planning, response, thinking about recovery in advance. 3 is our volunteer force, so credentialed, we're licensed veterinary professionals. We also have lots of animal lovers on our team, so even if you're not a licensed professional, please come hang out with us. Provision, we work with clinic partners and anyone in the area to make sure that we actually have resources, and then importantly, resiliency. While it's not the point of today's talk, I will mention that the veterinary industry as a whole is in a mental health crisis. 1 in 6 veterinarians consider suicide, and veterinarians are 2 times more likely to die by suicide than any other postgraduate profession. So the reason I mention this here is that in order to have a volunteer force, you have to have healthy, resilient, provisioned individuals to be able to do that mission. And then 4, sorry, just one quick note there, working animal teams, that definitely is my passion. Cut my teeth on Belgian Malinois and Shepherd issues in the military. I definitely love supporting both the handlers and the teams. What we're going to talk about today is making sure that that animal, that dog, is ready for a stressful event, what to do during a stressful event, and then to think about recovery. So this first slide speaks about how to prep a pet for something that you think might happen, but you don't exactly know what that is. How do you prepare your animal for the unknown? We obviously want to make sure that they never have any stress, never have any type of hurt in their life. We always want them to be safe, but that's just not the world that our beloved animals are going to be in. There's going to be something that's hard. There's going to be something that's stressful. There's going to be something that they get hurt doing. Especially loving working dogs. I can think of some of the animals that came into my clinic. I was like, why were they on the ladder? Why were they climbing on the fire hydrant? I mean, it's just something our animals are going to get into situations that we need to help them through. So by working on resiliency, that is a way that we make that animal prepared for the stressful event and hopefully make sure they go through that easier. Mental and emotional resiliency, Taylor talked a little bit about that. Training, make sure they know what it means to have someone they don't know touch them. Having some just basic commands, touch, mat, settle, that just help that animal understand what's going on in this chaotic environment. If you can just create a little bit of consistency and share that between the people who are in your pod on your FAR app, if you can include communication commands, touch commands, my dog knows what touch means, my dog knows what mat means. That's really amazing for your neighbor coming in to be able to say, touch, right? How much easier is that for your animal to do than like someone trying to grab my paw? So what I'm gonna talk about right now is physical resiliency. So how do we take care of their bodies and their systems? Because that also affects how their mental health goes through a stressful event, but also what we in the veterinary world need to do to help them recuperate afterwards. Can we do that in advance? We're gonna talk not in detail, but things to think about: endocannabinoid system. So the system that maintains balance and homeostasis throughout every mammal. Immune system, think about how many new stressors that animal's immune system is going to be exposed to. Simply by being stressed, we see decreases in immune levels. Adrenal gland, stress response system, definitely GI. Whose dog gets travel tummy is a really common word for it, just a little bit of diarrhea. I mean, it's just like we see that GI tract be that stress organ. And if your animal already has diarrhea when your parents come over or the kids come back from college, if you are ready, that GI tract be fragile, this is going to be an issue. And if you are not in your home for 3-5 days, that can be a medical issue. Dehydration, we can have electrolyte imbalances. So thinking about what that physiologic state is and how to create resiliency really can prevent some of those issues down the line. Okay, next slide. All right, and then support during a stressful event. This is an area that I really love working in my day-to-day practice. I am focusing on animals that have some form of emotional trauma. So some kind of behavioral condition that comes from an emotional trauma. Canine PTSD is a really big thing that I like to work on, but also what happens after a stressful event? The animal that was evacuated, if they were handled poorly, if it was really stressful, maybe we can't touch them in the clinic again, ever. So maybe that animal is okay after the evacuation. But what about that long-term health? What about that long-term ability for us to provide care? So if we think about in the middle of this really chaotic experience, what are the changes that are happening? Environment, so all their environmental cues are gone. How do I even know where I am? How do I know where I'm supposed to be? Thinking about Taylor's settlement. Some of the cues that you can put up in, no matter where you are, what are the things you can bring with you? What's in your go bag that lets your animal know this is our space? Okay, so change in environment is for sure going to happen. Changes in health status. So Madison and our team mentioned a great case example. So her cat, when stressed, is going to start shedding a virus that is very contagious to other cats. That's true about all animals. So respiratory diseases, any of those immune functions. So when we see a stressed animal, we're definitely going to need to look for things like this. Well, I won't mention it too much here. Feel free to come ask us more about it in the back. What about baseline monitoring before the event? You know, if you bring me your animal in the middle of a stressful event or right afterwards, and you're like, tell me how to fix it. And I say, I don't know what's wrong. I don't know if this is chronic. I don't know if this is new. I don't know if this is improving. It's really hard for me as a veterinarian to take one piece of information in a very dynamic situation and say what's going to happen from that. But if you give me 2 pieces of information, I'm twice likely to be able to tell you what's going on, much less if you build me a trust. So thinking about some of that baseline monitoring that you can do in advance can really be helpful. Stay there for a second, Taylor. Changes in your family needs. Hey, you are stressed in a disaster. You're stressed in an evacuation. And if you're not aware of how closely your animal is mirroring your emotional state, then you can actually put them in a pretty risky scenario. And we can talk about that more later in these questions. Thinking about the difference, sorry, Taylor, that's how long on the slide. Acute versus chronic stress. So first day, it's a lot. Everything's happening. 2 to 3 days in, we don't have any of our safety mechanisms. We don't have our own bed, and we don't have our own food. 5 to 7 days in, 10 to 14 days in, you're going to see the body change and display stress in a lot of different ways here. And we need to respond to it differently, but we can't unless we're watching. So a lot of this is to put those ideas in your brain as a pet parent. And as we learned from Hope Team, the advocate for your own animal in some of these circumstances. And then my last 2 bullet points there really just come from my own practice and some of the things that I end up seeing. This acute on chronic stress. So the animal who has an underlying behavioral health condition. The animal who already has separation anxiety. The animal who already has post-traumatic stress disorder. And then you add on to it a new stressor. Then in humans, we call that complex PTSD, which starts to be really difficult to handle behavioral conditions. And it happens the same thing in animals as well. If we don't recognize that underlying need and let these stressors accumulate, things like trigger stacking, flare-ups really can become an issue, and then we definitely see those embedded in body. Okay, now. Okay, and then almost to close, just to talk about monitoring after the stressful event. This is something that I, for sure, the practitioner, and definitely our team is really passionate about. We are interested in the health of your animal before, so what can we do to make them more safe? Definitely being available for whatever is needed in a response, but what do we also do after? How do we know that animal is still okay? Because honestly, it will take a little bit for that adrenaline to go away, for that body to resettle. We might see some chronic things flare up over weeks or maybe over months, especially those older animals, maybe underlying kidney disease, underlying GI disease. These are things that can present down the line. And if you as a family are still in the middle of recuperating from a disaster, sometimes it's these things that can be missed. The lack of appetite, the kind of change in how they interact. Maybe they're really starting to groom themselves, or maybe they're not grooming at all. So this slide is meant to really just reinforce that what your instincts as a pet parent tell you, something's wrong, but maybe you don't say anything because it's silly and I'm just making it up. Please say something about it. Take it to your veterinary team, raise your hand, ask a question. But by looking at these things and this long-term monitoring, we are actually able to make a big difference. Baseline diagnostics can be really, really helpful knowing what condition your animal is going into the stressful event with. Testing during the stressful event as well as afterwards. Again, come ask us about it later if you're interested, but we are really exploring non-needle options, right? So being poked with a needle is not the ideal thing for a stressed animal. So what can we do from pre-catch urine? What can we do from stool? What can we do from hair samples? There's a lot that we can tell about these chronic stress levels in animals. My favorite is just a pre-catch urine analyze that is really indicative of kidney disease. And sometimes we see kidney issues and urinary issues really be this underlying problem. So if you have a concern about your animal, thinking about doing that baseline diagnostic now, so that you actually have something to compare it to whenever a disaster strikes. Baseline journaling, the reason I put this in here is, it's the most important piece that you could ever give us. What do you think is going on with your animal over 2 to 3 days, over a week? So can you start making some notes now about behaviors or conditions your animals show, things you're worried about, things you want to monitor, so that you know that it's different? Because if there's a lot going on in your brain, sometimes it might be easy to miss the more subtle signs of something going on with your animal. Okay, next slide. And this brochure is from Ready, Colorado. We have a bunch of them in the back. Please come grab one. Particularly this sort of 4th panel in the Ready Pets checklist. This is a really easy, just what are ideas for your go bags? You already saw some from Taylor. There's a lot of resources out there. See some amazing ones at Pina's table. We see an amazing real life example here. So this is just a thing to have with you to kind of check as you're going through your home, what goes in your bag, what would be useful. And it does have a spot to put some important information, but we're so proud and honored to be working with Dave and the Pet Health and Rescue Now app to actually make some of that information be in the thing that you have with you. Or importantly, that information is with your animal if someone else brings them. Okay, so everyone just think about that for a moment, right? You have everything ready. You have your list, you have your go bag, you have your pet's medical records, but you're not the one who grabs your animal. Okay, so if they show up in the shelter and we don't know anything about them, how do we make sure that we actually find that information? So at-base information that then goes with that neighbor as they rescue them. We have often we'll do pet photo IDs and write microchip numbers on them. So there's a lot of things you can do, but thinking about it in advance is important.
Yeah.
All right, and that's all I have for you. This is our team email and our team website. Please reach out for more information. Please come chat now. We are animal lovers first and veterinary professionals next. So please come ask us your questions. I will just say that I am currently the director of our team, but we now have our new onboarding director, Dr. Jillian Penn, who showed up for a bit before her ER shift. We're really excited to introduce the community. So please come say hi. And I'll take questions now if anyone has them, or close and we'll move on. Yes, questions.
So that's the question about medication. So
Yeah.
Duffy evacuated our dogs during the Marshall fire. Thank goodness he was home. I was
Yes.
out of town. He knew all the things to grab, but constantly have anxiety about the arsenal of meds that my dogs have got. So, or one dog has seizure meds, anxiety meds, and IBD, and I'm like, oh my gosh, if those didn't come with him, we would be in such trouble during an emergency. How do you keep an extra, like, we can't keep that in a go bag, because we need it every day. Do you ask your veterinarian for, I mean, can you get like extra refills to have a go bag, or do you just need to tell someone like, hey, clear out the shelf of the cupboard if you come get.
And then all the extras you can share.
Yes, right.
So first, I will just remind everyone that when Taylor's presentation, she talked about a grab list and a go bag. So the grab list is like grab these items that are stored out. You know, like it's, I don't want to put it in a bag because I need it every day. And that's kind of the difference of, yeah, just remember to grab this from the fridge, grab that from the drawer, grab. I can see in my mind exactly what you're describing. Even if you're having a grab bag, a box underneath it that's like, where are we all and just bring it with you.
Like I have my pet stuff on my grab list, which is on my fridge.
Mhm.
And you can download a free sample of a grab list off of the Boulder ODM website. It's just like a piece of paper with lines, honestly. You can probably make your own, but if you want a more professional looking one.
We have one for Town of Superior. If you go to our website, I can pull it up after
Yeah.
questions.
So I just stuck it on, I mean, that's a little neat, but I guess if someone was at my house, I could say, look at my grab list. Yeah, you can have it on there.
And let me emphasize in that piece, the importance of practicing. So
Yeah.
while setting this up as a family is the first step, having something like Dave's app ready. Next step is to practice with your animals, right? To practice that collar grab, practice that settle in a tough environment. In May, we practiced with the Sunshine Canyon community in Boulder. They, as a community, were like, we want to practice. We want to evacuate our animals. We don't think that we know what to do. And so we did. We just sat with them and we practiced the drill and we found out what didn't work and found out what did. So as a community, if you want to do an exercise drill, like let's just practice one Saturday. Neighbors come over, I'm going to watch from the window, see what happens. It can be really hard to make yourself get to that planning point, but it has so much mental safety in that. So I would say probably what you're describing, a mix of your go bag and your grab box, but also you could definitely talk to your veterinarian about a small script that would be, based on what they're comfortable with. For my working dog, for a lot of my clients do a lot of backcountry, I will send them with a small script that is for that, or if there's something that they really need in an emergency, for sure, I do that with all my working dogs. So I think to continue to explore what needs to happen, but also having your evacuation plan. Where are you going? Does your friend have extras? What actually happens? Thinking through that will help you make sure that you have those caches ready. Does that help?
Oh, thank you. You probably missed that part of your presentation, Taylor, so.
It was, there were two slides on this one, but then also the feline one had a really good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we close? But again, we are coming back. Yeah.
I just want to make a comment. Thank you so much for the importance of practicing with your loved ones, because there is a high chance that you might not be that person and it's somebody else. And I will say, probably with David and disaster with my house, it's gonna be a mess. And they're gonna be like, wait, where is your stuff? Or where did that show? I can't see it. You just see it on your fridge. So we, my family, were actually giving them like a little color coded picture thing, which is literally like a bright piece of like, there's so many colors of duct tape, but like that green color that's really bright, because when they walk in your garage and they're like, and you say, oh, go find my goat tape, it's like, there's 900 candy bags here, which one of go? So we're gonna hopefully just write it and then take photos of it, save it in a little password, give it in your little iPhone notes or whatever, and it's stickers on top of things, and that sounds so silly, but visual cues are just when you're going, and how about you, that's a little bit of a message.
Great idea, great thought.
I can't heard the name tag where I have Zoom tags on with them.
You like the collar every time? Yeah.
Well, you can go get those little tags things that have Walmart and that's more than all of them tags and other tags and
Yeah, absolutely. Thinking about photos that have other identifying factors as well, can be really useful, like if a collar gets lost in an emergency, or a lot of animals don't have their collars on at home versus out. I think we all have pictures of ourselves cuddling with our animals, but when you think about an ID photo, think about more like a passport photo for your pet, like your face, pet's face, identifying markers like freckles that they have, broken teeth that you know are fixed in a certain way. Like, how do you demonstrate that this is my animal so that no matter what happens? Yeah.
I'd like to emphasize pet insurance, if you don't have it,
Oh, yeah.
especially in a disaster, because you're probably gonna be forced to pay for things you don't expect. I can tell you from our experience with our last dog before Wakana, it saved tens of thousands of dollars because that dog had 4 surgeries. Our cat just went through, renal stuff, kidney stones, and saved us about $3,000. So, you know, pet insurance is invaluable. It sounds, people, when you tell you guys, they think it's crazy, but, and it makes decisions a lot easier when you go to the vet and they say it's $10,000, you don't have to, you know, think twice about doing it.
Great comment. All right, and I think with that, we will close. Thank you all so much. I'll hand it back over to you.
Thank you. So, just a couple of announcements I want to make before we can visit the tables and ask more questions. I just pulled up our website, our disaster preparedness recovery website. If you scroll down, we've broken down to 4 different categories. If you go to disaster, general preparedness, you can find, you click create a grab list. If you go here, you can click a grab list template, click that, and then you can just print this out and create, you know, put in your items and location. So there is that. And then we have a video library, which I highly recommend for anybody to visit. We've got all of our past recordings under different categories of preparedness. We have mitigation stuff on there. We have water resource management. We also have animal preparedness from last year. We will be uploading this event recording in there. So give us a couple weeks before you see it. I'll upload slides in there as well if you want to revisit those. Also, lastly, on September 28th, we have a chipping event with Mount V Fire and Wildfire Partners. Allison and I will be there. We encourage all Superior residents to come and bring all your wood, your tree limbings, anything that you need to get chipped, to pull it over and learn more about mitigation, how to harden your home, create defensible space, and other ideas. Any questions?
One little piece about that, we're also encouraging residents to sign up for the Wildfire Partner rebate to junk your junipers and clear the first 5 feet of landscape for your home to harden that area. And you'll need before and after pictures of that work and any receipts. So if you need support to help you remove those items from your yard. And then you can sign up for that rebate. We'll be publishing our chipping sign up on the 23rd is when the big sign up push comes out. And then you sign up, you can sign up for that rebate through Wildfire Partners and then, you know, get rid of your vegetative yard waste debris that you want to get rid of with us on, it's going to be on the northeast corner of McCaslin and Colton Road at Town 15.
Okay. And anybody online, do you have any questions? If not, feel free to email me. I will have the recording up as well as the slides in a couple weeks. We have an hour left, so feel free to visit all the partners tables. Feel free to leave if you need to leave. I'm just happy you all here, and I hope this was helpful. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody online, for joining.